Hey, it's me, AP, aka Mr. Movie Cheer, and welcome back to another episode. And on this episode, I want to discuss how my movie taste has changed or evolved. So let's get into it. So, first, I want to start off with what was my previous pattern of watching movies. So let's start like the previous point of where we were at previously before we get to the change to the evolution of the taste. So I think a lot of the time for me, growing up and just before doing YouTube and stuff like that, very much like watching a lot of rewatches for me. That was like a majority of the movies. You know, there was some movies in there, so a lot of rewatches of movies I loved and enjoyed. And I will say that is not a bad thing. I still do that now, but I think I did it to more of a degree previously. You know, it was like watching my favorite ones over and over again, kind of not really experimenting with kind of like the analogy I suppose with like ice creams. You know, I was trying the same old ice cream I used to enjoy, and then I weren't trying new flavors, and I think that's what I was stuck in, just trying to say having the same flavored ice cream every time with the movies choices. So it was a lot of rewatches for me, and that was a lot of what I used to do, rewatching the same old movies. And I suppose as well, the pattern as well was big movie blockbusters. You know, your Avengers movies, your superhero movies, and ones again, not bad. But again, that was kind of my pattern, like rewatching movies I enjoyed as comfort movies, and then just watching the big blockbuster movies, and kind of not delving too much further afield from that. And I think it was a lot of it avoiding genres I didn't like or maybe wasn't educated in. For example, I will get to it further down the line in this episode, but like horror movies would be something I would kind of avoid a lot more, because I'm a big scaredy cat. Scaredy cat, and I still am, to be fair. Subtitled movies, I would avoid them. I'd never watch them, purely because I think laziness. If I'm being honest, if we're being completely honest on this episode, um, yeah, I think of always reading the subtitles. I'm not a great reader in all honesty. I always say I like reading books, but if I'm being truthful, I listen to the audiobooks, on Audible. I've read the occasional book, but it takes me so long and I can't take the words in, and I think that's what was always the thing with watching subtitled movies. I always kind of struggled, and I think something then has shifted over the years. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is listening to more books and just something's changed in my brain. But we'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, subtitled movies would be another one. Even anime to a certain degree, because I wasn't really into like the Studio Ghibli stuff, stuff like that, and some of the other animes over years ago I wouldn't have really watched. And it wasn't like I'm against watching any of these type of movies. I think it's just again something I never really delved into. Maybe horror maybe so it was the fear of the horror movies, but the rest of them it was kind of like lack of interest because I've never delved into that, and just not knowing where to start and what movies to watch. So a lot of that, and I think as well my previous watching patterns for movies is I think I can look back and as well at not giving movies a chance, and that would be even putting a movie on and not just give it 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and being like, oh, this isn't that great. And don't get me wrong, there is some movies that occasionally, I would say occasionally now, but I think I would probably do that, and I think a lot of the time it would be not even that so much. I think it would be not even giving it a watch. I'd see a movie and I'd be like, look at this type of movie, and I'd be like, oh, that's not going to be my jam. It's not got action. It's not got sci-fi. It's not got superheroes in it. Pass. It's a pass from me. And I think that was another thing, another part of my pattern of watching movies previously. And I'm talking, this is not recently. This is like that's like many years ago now. I think the evolution of my movie watching habits has evolved over many years, and it still is. It's still evolving, but yeah, I feel like several years ago now. That would have been, I would say, probably prior to doing maybe like the last. I think it's changed a lot over the last 5 years, and I think they were more my patterns. I'd say about maybe 5 years ago. They were more. of my patterns of watching movies. So my change in taste, what has really, what's changed taste wise, movie wise? So like I said, subtitle movies. Now I think two of the more recent ones that I've watched that I really think of as some ones that the experiences I really enjoyed, like Parasite. That was fantastic. And that was recommended to me by my buddy Matt. And another one, Godzilla minus one. Two really big standouts recently that I've watched and I've been like, wow, they are phenomenal, phenomenal movies. Both of them in their own right. Both obviously very different movies. But really enjoyed both of them. And I think, like I said, subtitle movies. I think something I don't know. It's something like whether it's something to do with age, maybe just like giving movies more of a chance with subtitle movies. But I can enjoy the movies now a lot more. Um, Reading them, I don't feel like like it's taking me out of the movie. I think maybe it depends as well on the subtitle movie as well you're watching. I think if it's fast paced, if maybe it's too much going on, it is harder to watch. But yeah, I definitely like with them two particularly, I found it very relaxing and very. I could watch the movie. I didn't feel like it was like kind of being taken away from the visual to look at the text. It was not like that at all. I think what I watch a lot more now, and what I do definitely gravitate to a lot more is like thrillers and a lot more heavy dialogue movies. Whereas, like I said previously, I'm a child of like the 90s. I grew up with the 90s and 80s action movies. So for me, it was always that growing up, science fiction. So a lot of them movies, like you look at an Arnie movie or a Stallone movie, they're not like I suppose you could say some of them, but like there's a lot of big set pieces in them type of movies. What I enjoy, gravitate to. But I think now over the years, I really do enjoy more of your heavy dialogue movies more so. I wouldn't say they take over what I enjoy about them sort of action movies. Are still they're my that's my jam. But I think I can appreciate them movies, different movies more. Like I look at it like one movie, recent or a few movies. The Ford versus Ferrari movie that was phenomenal. And sure, there's a lot of action set pieces in there, so that's a wrong one. But I think like movies like The Big Short and Moneyball come to mind. Very heavy dialogue movies, very character focused, and they are movies that I really do enjoy. That Moneyball is one. Is like man, that is just like right up my street. That movie, and Big Short again. That's talking about movies not given chances. I remember watching that a few years ago and turned it off after about 10 minutes because I thought it was absolute garbage. Watched it recently. I remember seeing like the little you see the little teasers on Netflix, and I think I watched it on something like that anyway. Um, and I watched it and I was like, wow, this is great. This is really sort of movie I enjoy. And again, I think maybe it's a maturity, it's a change in taste, an evolution of your movie watching taste. But like movies, I remember, I remember my friend Matt years ago. I remember he used to mention movies like Nightcrawler and Prisoners, and I would just like pass them off a lot and make a sarky remark probably, and then I watched them in recent years, and like Nightcrawler, phenomenal. Prisoners, again, phenomenal. Two great Jake Gyllenhaal movies. Zodiac is another one I watched. I remember watching and being like, wow, that's a heavy dialogue movie. Really good thriller. If you've not watched Zodiac, highly recommend watching that movie. But superb film. As I said, animated movies. It's like dipping your toe. That's what I like about movies. I like music, and there's all different genres. And Studio Ghibli, the animated movies, I like them in recent years, and I feel like I've dipped my toe in a way, but I've still not experienced all of them because there's that many of them movies. There's like 20, 34. I don't even know how many there is at this rate. It's absolutely tons. But they are fantastic, and I really enjoy them. And they're a completely different experience to the movies I've just discussed previously. Very much a different experience, but very enjoyable. And again, something if you said to me about it 10 years ago to watch them type of movies, I just wouldn't have had the interest. I wouldn't have had the interest in seeing it. And yeah, and I think like horror. I was speaking about horror previously, but Horror is one where, personally, I am still like that with horror movies because I weren't really brought up on horror movies per se. I'd watch the odd one like Dawn of the Dead, but and like Lost Boys and stuff like that. But I was never heavy into horror. I'm watching like the screams, but again, too much gore I can't handle. I still can't handle too much gore, but I feel like I'm giving more um, horror a chance a bit more because of the fact because there's not there's subcategories of horror what I will enjoy, like your comedy horror, your fantasy horror. So there's certain it's like different angles of where I can enjoy like a certain perspective of horror and a certain genre of horror. So I'm not being like closing the door as much where I used to kind of be a bit more like that, kind of being like, oh, it's a horror, it's got horror in the title. No way. I'm not there. So I think that's the way my taste has definitely changed over the past couple of years with my movie watching um, sort of habits and experiences and taste in movies. So how did it change? How did the movie taste change and evolve? I think first of all, doing YouTube. YouTube is the big one. I think you know making videos discussing movies and then you get recommendations in the comments, being involved in the community as well, going on live streams, being in comments and watching other people's videos, being on Instagram, on TikTok, hearing recommendations, getting involved with the community, seeing people post movies. I see it a lot on Instagram, like my friend Rider Rated 18. I see him put movies up there. I'm like, oh, that looks like a really interesting movie. And I see it again on YouTube. People like Ash from Popcorn Horror. It'll put a video up, and many many more for that matter. I feel like that's where it kind of just opens the window. And doing YouTube is the big one for me. Where I feel like I want to watch them movies to discuss them to share my new experience, and that's what I like. And I think just having new experiences as well. I feel like for movies, some people say they want to go and jump out of a plane or go canoeing or something. I'm like sometimes for me like a movie gives me that experience watching a new movie I've never seen before or never heard of. I get that kind of experience. It's this fresh experience. That's what I like about movies. Um, I do. I love, and what I love really is exploring movies I've never heard of before. I'll get a movie. Someone will say, mention a movie, and I'll just go and watch it and just have no idea. I think I mentioned like Ash from Popcorn Horror. I think he mentioned in one of his videos last year the film Bodies, 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 and it was an alright movie. But I had zero idea what it was about. And I was going into it, didn't know what to expect. And again, it's just one of them where you're watching it and it's. I love that idea when you go into a movie and you don't know what to expect. And you have zero idea of the plot, but people say, oh, it's a good movie, this. So I'm like, yeah. Parasite was another one where it's like that. No idea what was going on. I'm watching it. I expected some sort of like monster movie, Parasite, some sort of like big insect or something like that, and I was totally off base from what it was actually. But doing I think as well like doing challenges, and that's similar to the YouTube thing, but like last year I did the 31 days of horror challenge, trying out different horror movies, and some of them I would say majority would kind of like lend to watching comedy horror, which I do enjoy. Stuff like Army of Darkness, Shaun of the Dead, things like that I do like. So I found, but then I was watching other ones what maybe kind of stretch the boundaries a bit more. But I felt good for myself, the fact I tried some new movies and I was scared on some. And there was scenarios where I had to turn off the movie sometimes. Hellraiser for one. I got maybe 20 minutes into that movie and there was a particular scene in it where I found it too much. I felt sick watching it. Getting really like that anxiety of watching it, and that's where the fear of horror movies comes in, and certain ones I just genuinely can't watch. I find it too hard to watch. So there is exceptions, but I feel like I'm getting better, and I think it's good just having that like doing challenges like that. People doing it like Christmas time. They'll watch like 25 days of Christmas movies. I think it's a cool challenge because you kind of like. And when you're documenting it as well, it's more fun. I find it a lot of fun when you're doing the documentation. You're putting it about on Instagram or wherever, and you say, "I watched this movie today," and I think it's like a fun little challenge. It's like it like gamifies it a bit. I like that, but I think you know what? Giving movies a second go, that has been another one. How my change of taste has evolved over the years, definitely. You know, giving movies a second chance. I always say like movies like Logan. I never watched it first time, didn't like it. Watched it second time, thought it was phenomenal. Big Short. There's tons of movies like that I've watched over the years where first time watching them have just been experience where I've been like, this is just not a great movie, and then I watch it in a different time, maybe a different mindset going into it, and I enjoy the movie a lot more. Get a different experience, a different experience overall from watching that movie. So I think giving movies another shot sometimes is well worth it, and sometimes I do that. I'll put a question mark over a movie and I'll be like, maybe it needs a second watch. I was watching one last night. Funny enough, it was what was it? Buckaroo Banzai with Peter Weller in, and I'm kind of like on the fence. I'm like, is this a good movie or a bad movie? I'm kind of unsure. I felt like it was one of them ones where I feel like I need to give it another go to kind of maybe make my mind up, and maybe it's just not a movie for me, and I'll find out that on the second viewing. But I feel like maybe this won't be straight away. Maybe a couple of months down the line or a year down the line, I give it another shot. But I felt like that, like it just maybe there was something there that I'm not missing. Maybe I didn't get it, didn't understand it, and maybe it deserves a second view, so a second viewing. So I think that's definitely the way over the years my movie taste has changed for sure. Them all them different reasons. So I just want to give a bit of a roundup here. I think, like I said, I think it's good to just look at your taste over the years and see how you've adapted and just keep on going. I think, you know, bottom line, just trying new movies, trying different, you know, movies that you avoid, give them a go. Like, I think if you want to kind of just like widen your experience of watching movies and widen your taste, and because there's tons of movies out there, and you can always go back to your you know, if you're big into action movies, you can always go back to your action movies. If you're big into spy movies, you can always go back to them. But it's good to just broaden your taste sometimes. I found it very enjoyable over the years, watching different types of movies, getting different movie watching experiences. I think it's good because it inspires you in different ways. You know, like it inspires me creatively for the YouTube channel. Talking about movies, it creates more discussions. It opens up friendships as well because you can discuss things with people who maybe you wouldn't have talked about movies with prior. But now you've got a common interest in different, you know, say you like they like horror movies or they like animated movies that you wouldn't have watched previously, and you start delving into them, and you can have a discussion about them. So I think it opens so many different doors in regards to movies, but it's just about enjoying more, and there's so much more out there as well. So I think it's great to see people whose taste evolves, and it's good to look back on the way my personal taste has evolved over the years in movies. So I love that, and it's great to chat about it on here, as always. If you enjoyed this episode today, please do leave a comment and let me know your thoughts on this topic of movie taste and how your taste has evolved. I mean, how do you feel about this one? Do you feel like your taste has evolved over the years? Maybe you do YouTube or Instagram, or maybe you don't do any. Maybe it's just like you collect movies, you watch or you stream movies, and you just feel like you change and your taste has changed. And what direction has it went in? What type of movies have you sort of like watched more so over recent years? Maybe you don't feel like that. Maybe you feel completely the opposite side of the spectrum, and you just kind of be like, you know what? I've been watching this type of movie since I was a kid. I'm not changing. I'm happy with that. And if that's the way you go, you know what? There's nothing wrong with that either. I don't think there's anything wrong either way. I think as long as you're enjoying movies, that's the main one for me. That is the main one. But let me know all your thoughts on this topic today. Folks, I've enjoyed talking about this. It's been a really fun one. Thank you very much for joining me today, ladies and gents. Remember to spread a bit of movie cheer, and as always, I will see you next time.